Welcome, welcome, welcome to the RossKote podcast. This is episode 1, an introduction to the podcast. It's about building community around powder coating. In this inaugural episode of the podcast, we introduce ourselves as the coder and the blogger team we call RossKote. Ross and Kim Scott each share what they want to accomplish with this podcast for powder coaters. Listen in as Kim shares a secret about what she's doing behind the scenes of their business and then introduces her husband, partner, and powder coater, Ross. He talks about his humble beginnings and shares insights into his journey as a powder coater. Get ready to level up your powder coater game. Aloha and welcome to RossKote's Powder Coater Podcast. Episode numero uno, introduction to RossKote's podcast. This is our inaugural episode of the RossKote podcast. We're happy that you're joining us today, and we'd love to introduce ourselves as the coder and the blogger team called RossKote. We are just going to cover in today's episode an intro to Ross and myself and what this podcast is all about. So welcome, Ross. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. We're recording in separate rooms, so Ross is just calling in. It's a little weird to record and do it like this, but we're learning, and hopefully you'll learn something from Ross today. I guess the meaning and the word RossKote has kind of was it kind of a take on your name, Ross Scott, but it's kind of just turned into this pseudonym for you and for me. Of course, Ross is your name, and Kote starts with a K, K-O-T-E. So just figured that made sense to call it RossKote for Ross and Kim. I am, and what we're trying to do in this podcast is to really bring you interviews from influencers in the industry and cover trending topics in the industry as well. So powder coaters like you that have, got different skill levels. Maybe you're a beginner, maybe you're not. You've been in it for a while and you want to learn some new tips and tricks from other powder coaters. It's sort of a way to bring the community together. So we really want to build community around powder coating, and that's the nature of this podcast. But in the end, ultimately, we want to have you learn things through this podcast that you can that can help you grow your business, whether it's everything from marketing to tips and tricks in the trade to maybe new suppliers that you've never heard of, or it's really just trending topics and stuff of interest to us. And you're always welcome to submit a topic idea as well to us at info@mauipowderworks.com. So just a little bit more about me. I am the ghostwriter for the RossKote Powder Coating blog, where we cover everyday topics that our customers want to know about in powder coating. So that's kind of the angle that we went with our blog. I know there's a lot of blogs out there that are technical blogs, and that's not really who we're not really writing to powder coaters. The podcast is actually our arm or our interest there in trying to connect other powder coaters with us and our interest in powder coating. But the blog technically is more about just bringing relevant customer topics to help them educate and understand more about powder coating and what it is. In September 2019, we added a new a leg to that, and that is market research. We published our first industry paper where we surveyed several powder coaters on trends in rim powder coating and what colors and topics that were covered in that. It's a free, you can get it now. It's free. I'll include a link below. So you can just click on that and get that free report so that you know what we found out in that market research paper. So up next, our next brand, it's going to be a brand research paper, and hopefully interview a very special guest in that market research paper via podcast. So we'll be announcing that hopefully in the next couple weeks. I'm working on that market research paper now, and it's all about branding, marketing, and making sure that you have all the information you need to know about branding your powder coating company. So let me introduce Ross a little bit more. He's our guest today. And Ross is the owner of Maui Powder Works. He's based out of Maui, Hawaii, and he's been powder coating for now how many years?
Oh, it's been a good 20 years doing this. Yeah.
And we do have a website and any other social media. You want to let the listeners know what that is? Where can they find us?
MauiPowderworks.com.
All right. And we also have an Instagram and Facebook page as well, all under Maui Powder Works name. Are you surprised to learn that we're doing a podcast now?
Yes. I'm always so busy, and now I have to allocate time for this.
You do. And what do you hope to achieve through this podcast? I mean, maybe you'll be hosting, I'll be doing most of the hosting, but maybe sometimes you'll be hosting guests and interviewing people.
Well, like you said earlier, a lot of our blog is about basically letting the customers out there know about powder coating, more or less against liquid coatings. It's a big segment, and we're trying to kind of chip away at that, saying, hey, you can powder coat this instead. And, obviously there's a lot of technical stuff, and, there's things that powder coaters need to know. And, somebody who's been doing it like I have for 20 years, and there's other people that have been doing it longer, and they have incredible insight on things to make your life a lot easier when you're powder coating. So I think that'd be nice to go over some stuff like that in future podcasts, and tips and tricks, basically. And of course, let's basically tell the customers what we do so we can expand our businesses.
Yeah, I think everybody, the whole point is just to kind of raise everybody up into being positive and optimistic, I guess, even in the midst of this economic situation that our country's in and facing right now. But you kind of touched on something where, we do have technical blogs, and we do have, the powder coating handbook from PCI. There's a lot of technical information out there, but there's not a lot of in between the lines stuff. And I guess that's kind of where we want to kind of find ourselves in order to help build this community and reach out to other powder coaters that could be struggling with a specific interest or a specific topic or problem. Maybe we can troubleshoot along the way and help all of ourselves out, because sometimes, as you know, and I remember many, many times of you cursing all day long while you were learning how to powder coat. And the other thing is, our brand as Maui Powder Works is, well, let's face it, guys, we're in Hawaii. We're thousands of miles away from the mainland. And we didn't have the convenience or even luxury of flying out to take courses or be involved in educational opportunities to learn powder coating. We kind of had to scrub it out on our own. And in doing so, we just kind of ad hoc'd our way to it. I'm sure pretty much a lot of powder coaters today can understand that. You may not have the means to go to some fancy class and learn something new. So we, going blindly into it, we never really mimicked ourselves after anybody. We just kind of crafted and created our own brand, our own understanding of what powder coating is. Both of us have an extensive background in painting. And so in getting into that industry, or coming from that industry, we basically felt like it was a nice crossover for us. But even in that, powder coating is so different from painting. So it didn't really help in the end. It just gave us a little bit more of a different perspective on how to start this company. So how did we get started? Ross, you've got kind of a funny story about that. Would you like to share that?
Well, yeah, like you said, we came from a painting background, and so when we say that, basically, let me tell you what we were painting. We were doing a lot of resort work here in Hawaii. We were doing furniture restoration. Basically, we were taking teak tables, stuff like that, around the resorts where they have in their dining areas or in their open areas, and we're basically sanding those down and then reapplying like a lacquer finish or a polyurethane finish, depending on what type of environment it was in. We also did a lot of resort work with condos, doing refinishing of like the dining tables and the dresser drawers, because they get beat up. I mean, these things they're like a boat. They're going out every day, and they got people coming in and out, basically bashing the stuff, and just get beat up. So we were the go-to people that would fix their people's stuff up and make it look new again. So we had that background, painting, doing a lot of painting. And, one day we were going over to pick up a dining room set at a hotel, and the guy next door saw us picking it up. He was an older man and said, "Hey, can you do my lanai set?" And I said, "Sure, let me take a look at it." And went over to his place, and we went out to his lanai set, and I was like, I think I can do this. And I basically said, "Yeah, I can do this. We'll basically sand it down and repaint it with a good oil-based enamel and put it back in service for you." And he was like, "No, I don't want that done. I want it powder coated." And I was like, "Oh boy," and he got literally right in my face. And I was like, "Oh God." And I had no idea what this powder coating was. I was like, I had no idea. So I went home and researched it on the computer. And then I went, wow. And at that moment, I realized this is where I needed to go. And basically,
we didn't get the job.
No, I didn't get the job. I did not get that job. In fact, I'm glad I didn't get that job because it was incredible. So what I did is I went online and I looked for a cheap system just to start. And I literally got, like, I don't know how many other coders have done this, but I got one of those $99 Eastwood kits. And it had the cheapy gun with the cup and, and the little electrical thing you plug into the 110. And I bought their little sample packet, and I started powder coating things for the guys next door. We were next door to a bike shop. Our shop was next door to a custom fabricating bike shop. And the guy goes, "Hey, I'll give you my oven." He had an old oven that he was from his house. So I had the cheap Eastwood setup and this guy's oven that he gave me, and we hooked it up into my shop. And he started giving me like little parts, and I just started doing them. I I just read the manuals and went, okay, easy. And there I went. And in fact, the first thing I did was I think it was some handlebar risers and a set of handlebars, and they were brand new. So I just basically, at that point in the game, I was just roughing it up with sandpaper and blowing it off and doing an acetone wipe and then torching it with the torch, and then off I went, boom. And it was funny. The first job I did came out totally perfect, and the guy went, "Oh my God," and it was hilarious.
Out of luck, probably, because smaller parts are so much easier to do than the bigger you get, the harder, the more complex things get. And
anything that's brand new is easier to do. So anyways, I was getting these brand new parts, and he was sending the stuff off to Oahu to get powder coated. And he said, "Oh my God, your stuff is way better." And of course I wasn't really charging enough. And, so he immediately went with me, and boom, there I was in business. I had a motorcycle account right next door, and it was hilarious. Since we were in the hotels, we were already say, "Hey, just let you know, we can powder coat these," and then went into basically the fixtures for the air intake.
Air conditioning grates.
Yeah. And then it was just like, oh my God.
But they didn't fit in the oven though, did they? We ended up having to use, we went really low tech and ended up using those, what are those called? Those lamps?
The infrared lamps. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a pretty interesting story here. So I could do the small ones in the oven, and I did do them in the little oven. And then once we got to the larger size grates, I was doing them with the infrareds, and boy, there was a huge learning curve there, trying to get it at the right temperature and getting it to cure properly. But I did do it that way for I want to say about 2 years. We did it that way, and I would do motorcycle frames that way, and it was a royal pain in the butt. It took so long to do, but it was doable, and that's how I learned. And as the time went down the road, I said, "Let's get an oven. Let's go buy an oven."
Then you wanted to build your own oven, and I remember that was. You had researched that even. And so talking about research and stuff, it's like, what was it like in the early 2000s, looking for and getting and garnering information? Where did you go? What was going on back then to get that information that you needed just to get even started? Because it's way different today.
It is different today. In fact, you can just Google it and there it is. And it was almost like you had to go dark web for it. It was like, it was like, oh my God, where, I would spend hours looking for places and there was nothing. And, I just kept digging deeper and deeper. And one day there was a place that I was ordering powder from. It was called Caswell, and that was back then. That was a long time ago. And they started a little blog, and boom, all of a sudden there was like people on there talking about building ovens and hey, how long do you cure this for it? At what temperature? And hey, what are your gun settings at? And everybody was like, because we were all like, whoa, all in the dark, And I would go there, and I would get a lot of information. There was another spot, I think it was powder365.com. Also, I went to, and it had a lot of information. And back then there still wasn't that much information as far as oven builds. It was like incredibly nothing out there. And I was just searching and searching and searching. And would you like me to tell the story on that, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, are you going to talk about TED?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a little plug here. There's Ted's Fab.
I don't know if Ted wants the plug, though. That's the thing.
Well, Ted's Fab. So I've come across this site, and it wasn't an oven build site. It was basically his site. He's selling ovens, and I was like, oh wow, look, I can get a 6x 6x4x4 oven for $3,000, because I was looking for an oven at that size, and the cheapest thing was $5,000, and then you had to spend $5,000 to get it here. So it was just like, whoa, that's a lot of money for a little guy that's starting up. And I call Ted, because I'm thinking maybe he can put it on a pallet all disassembled, and I can build it here, so that I'll save in shipping costs, because they charge by the cubic foot. So if you lay it all down flat, it'll be a lot less. So that's what I'm thinking. So I call Ted, and I'm like, hey, blah, 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 I'm Ross, hey, how's it going? And we have this awesome conversation. And he goes, well, do you know how to build? And I said, yeah, I've framed houses. I've done drywall. I've done all kinds of stuff. He goes, well, if you can frame a wall, you can build an oven. And I said, okay. And he says, this is how you do it. And I was like, oh. Wow. So he told me how. And I literally went to Home Depot. I got off the phone, and he sent me everything, the controllers, the heaters, and everything to do it, like the door seal and the latches. And I mean, within I think it was like 2 weeks, I had those materials, and I had already had the oven built, and boom, I was off and running. It was that simple. And it was exciting.
It was exciting time too, because it put the power in your hands to create your own oven, that you could modify and change all into yourself. Sorry, go ahead and continue.
Yeah, exactly. And, I just basically built it upon Ted's recommendations. But as I learned more about it and how the ovens work, I actually ended up making them better in the future. I redid them, and I placed the elements in different locations, and it's just, I made it so it just cooks so even. You get a perfect cook every time, and fast. I mean, really fast.
But you had to do your homework, though. I remember you crunching some numbers, and it's not easy to do, the formula there for some. I know it took you a while to figure out the cubic feet and the heat part of it. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point. I know
yeah. British thermal units, BTUs.
Yeah, right. And Ted, if you're listening out there and you get a bunch of calls, sorry ahead of time. But he's a wonderful man, and he's been out there for a while. And if it wasn't for him, we're very, very grateful for his help when he did reach out like that, back then. So that was a long time ago, but yeah, that's pretty much how we got the initial thing going and stuff. What happened after that was just many, many years of hard learning and trying to understand metallurgy, I guess, in a sense, metal and all of its fickleness and coating, especially when it doesn't want to be coated. What do you think sets you apart?
As far as
powder coater.
Other coders? Well, I'm definitely.
Or just
I'm self-learned. That's for sure. I never took any fancy classes or anything. And in fact, just recently, I started looking at YouTube, just going, oh wow, look, these guys are doing videos on this, and it's like, oh yeah. And then I always comment, oh, whoa, you're too close, back up,
Yeah.
It's like, because I've learned through all these years of doing it what to do and what not to do, and there's nothing like that in the world when you're self-taught and you learn something, because it's ingrained in your mind, and you learn sweet spots and tricks and things that most people won't know. And that's just through experience of time. So, the longer you do it, the better you get at it. And like I said, or like you said, I would probably say the first 3 years there was a lot of swearing going on. I would pull things out, and I was doing the hot flock coat or something, and there was drips, and I'd be like, ah, damn, and you'd have to start all over. And the time is money in this business, and back then I didn't even have a dip tank, and I couldn't strip things quickly, so it was really difficult, But I look at it where I'm at now. It's like, oh wow, this is pretty easy. Don't have really stressful days anymore, and I've dealt with almost every type of metal that's out there, and I kind of know its little tweakiness of where it wants to be, and and how to coat it. So those are things, and that's the kind of stuff I want to talk about in this blog. Basically, just tell people, hey, this is what I do in this situation, and this is a really good thing. You don't have to take my advice, but it's there, and
it's there,
and it will help you. It will help you, and I think I would like to start giving back to the community, because I've learned a lot of things, and just in my experience of building my ovens, dealing with the different types of ovens too. I mean, there's a whole huge world between electric and gas, and then natural gas. I mean, it's like there's a whole set of problems with the gas ovens, and and if you live in a place like Hawaii and that has a lot of sun, and hell, you put a solar array up on your roof and you got free energy, and you just got to build the oven right so it can, depending on your size of jobs, and that's another thing, the size of ovens. These guys that do rims, and they have like 20-foot ovens, and it's like, oh, that's just lose money. You're putting in a set of rims in a huge ass oven, and it's not profitable that way. And you have to, make the oven fit the job. Make the oven fit the job. So.
Well, I think you're onto something here, honey. I think that I think there's a lot to be talked about, a lot of things to be discussed, and I think that's what I'd really like to cover moving forward, and with you and with other coders. And that's the thing, we're going to be interviewing all kinds of coders and all kinds of people in this industry. So I just kind of want to wrap up what we're going to be doing moving forward. And, again, you just came up with like 3 or 4 topics right now that we could continue to talk about and will be talking about in the future. But just to wrap things up, we've got about 3 minutes left on this. What do you do to keep your A game going? Do you subscribe to any kind of mantra or philosophy? What drives you, or
my A game is when I slow down and I just look at things and take it real slow. Powder coating is quick, it's fast, but you gotta take it slow. Your approach has to be slow and steady. And if you take a real slow and steady approach to it, it comes out great. And you have less mistakes, and it's just all basically concentrate on the fundamentals. Make sure you got a good ground. Make sure you got your air is clean. These are just some topics, and then
I guess be methodical in your approach, right?
Be methodical, but at the same time, don't rush it, because that's the thing. Time is money, but if you take your time and do it right, it comes out right the first time.
Right.
There's no redos, and you're just like, wow. I mean, there was, for example, I can say, when I first started, I was like, oh, and I put all 4 rims into the oven and scrunch them in there, and and then I'd always have a mistake in one of them because I'm just pushing too many. And then when I went, oh, well, why don't I just do one at a time and just take my time? And I would actually get it done quicker and faster by doing it that way. And then you're focusing on each rim at a time, and you get a better output as far as
we do have multiple ovens though, so that's
yes.
helped us as a batch coder, that's really helped us kind of size jobs and helped with pricing. It's
Right.
helped
No,
with,
definitely. And that's a whole
a
nother
lot
topic
of,
there.
yeah, it is. And I think it's a big topic for sure that we'll be covering. But anyways, just to wrap things up with our first one, we're happy and excited to be the RossKote podcast, where we're building community around powder coating. I have just interviewed RossKote, the coder. I am Kim Scott, the blogger, and we look forward to another podcast with Ross to talk about more things, powder coating, all things powder coating. So thank you very much for joining us today. Ross, do you have anything you want to add last minute?
Yeah, if there's anybody, that has a specific topic or a question, please submit it to us, and let's address it, and that way we can get your questions addressed. Because I'm just going to basically I'm going to go off what I think are some basic fundamentals for our next show, and we'll just go over the fundamentals first, and then from there we can go more specific.
Yeah, and I think a lot of like good. Oh, sorry, my timer's going off. I think a lot of good topics are being covered in the Facebook groups and stuff, but I don't think there's really. I think the interest with the podcast is we can actually do a deeper dive versus just commenting and back and forth on a topic in the Facebook blogs or the Facebook groups and stuff like that. But I think it's just another avenue to reach out to people in the community, and I'm so happy to start this with you and our inaugural episode 1 of the RossKote podcast. Until then, I hope you guys make money, make a living, and have a wonderful day. Aloha.